Hola and g'day from beautiful Cancun. My name is Mark. I'm a Kiwi rugby fan living here in beautiful Mexico. And this is my rugby channel called Inside Rugby with Mark. I'm glad to have you along. If it's your first time here, welcome. We're growing a global rugby community here. We've got lots of things happening after the Rugby World Cup, so I would love you to stick around. But in this video, I'm going to talk about the final build-up to that amazing final we've got between the New Zealand All Blacks, the South African Springboks. The teams have been announced, and going to give you some final thoughts around this particular game. We've got the first strands of winter coming into Mexico, and what a beautiful feeling that is after being blasted for months and months with unbearable temperatures. But it's starting to get a little bit cooler. It feels like rugby season, which is a good thing indeed. I hope you're all doing well out there. If you're a first timer here with me on Inside Rugby with Mark, welcome. It's great to have you here. We are building a global rugby community here, and after the Rugby World Cup I'm going to be doing all sorts of things across the world in relation to rugby, following different championships, interviewing players, fans, all sorts of incredible things coming up. So I really love you to stick around if you want to. It's not going to be all gloom and doom because the Rugby World Cup is coming to an end, but with game. But let's focus now on the final of the Rugby World Cup. We're only just over 24 hours away from that happening. It's going to be a bit wet in Paris, it looks like. The All Blacks have named their team. The Springboks have gone with their team. Rassie has done it again, 7-1 split, and I ask myself, why doesn't he go 8-0? And hold on before you crucify me. I think there's an opportunity to go 8-0, maybe not in a World Cup final, but there is definitely an opportunity to go 8-0 at some stage, and I wouldn't be surprised if Jacques and Rassie pull that out of the bag at some stage. But what do you think? Do you think we'll ever see the 8-0 split? I think we will at one stage with this team. It's pretty special, that's for sure. So yeah, let's have a look at the two teams and just give you my final thoughts around this one. I am going to make a prediction. I'm sitting here with my black shirt on, my black blood in my veins, and of course I'm going to say New Zealand's going to win this final, but there is a caveat, and I'm going to say that after I've talked about the two teams, so stick around for that one. Now let's have a look at the two teams, starting off with the Springboks. And in the front row, well, it's what we expected, right? It's Bonnami, Stephen Kitsoff and Frans Maherba. And since Malcolm Marx has gone, that's been the staple diet for South Africa in the front row, and those boys have done the job, that's for sure. How much gas have they got left in the tank? That's going to be a big factor, I think, during this game, up until that time when the bomb squad is brought on. But expect these boys to go big, go hard and go early in this contest against the All Black front row. So that's going to be a fascinating aspect of this game. And then in the second row, those two locks that have done the job for South Africa in the starting 15, Etzebeth and Mostert. And well, what do you expect from these two guys? Only the best, right? And they usually deliver. Mostert tackling count in this tournament has been astronomical. He's been very, very good in that area. We were all surprised to see Etzebeth come off in that game against England, but again, it's all about strategy, it's about team, it's about 23 players, and boy, did South Africa do the job. Then we move on to the back three for the Springboks, and of course we've got Sia Kalisi, Peter Steftoy and Dwayne Vermeulen, and what a trio those guys are, and expect them to do nothing other than commit themselves completely to the task at hand, which means getting into that collision, playing at speed and trying to clear the All Blacks out in the breakdowns to win that particular part of the game. So that's going to be another fascinating aspect of the game, is how the South African trio at the back go up against the All Black trio. So there's the starting 8 for the Springboks, and then of course we've got the bomb squad to come on, and the only change in the bomb squad is Vincent Koch wasn't fit enough to play this game. Jacques Nienaber said on Monday, if you're not strong enough to train on Monday, you're not going to be considered in the starting 23 for the weekend, and that's what happened to Vincent Koch for this final, unfortunately for him. So Trevor Nyakane has come in, and he will be the replacement in the bomb squad. So coming off the bench, we're going to see that formidable bomb squad, and it's going to consist of Dion Fourie, Ox Nasher, Aji Schneemann, Trevor Nyakane, Quagga Smith, Jasper Visa and Jacques Klein. So an intense bomb squad for the Springboks. Lots of talent there, lots of size, and as Jacques Nienaber and Rassie Erasmus have been doing all tournament long, they want to bring these guys on to have a major impact in this particular final. So that's going to be the South African forwards that are going to do the job in this game against the New Zealand All Blacks, on the hopes of all South Africans and Springbok supporters. Now let's have a look at the back line that the Springboks are going to put in this game. Start off at 9 and 10 for the Springboks, and Faf de Klerk and Andre Pollard are going to be in there starting, and no surprises here for me because I don't think South Africa could afford to get off the kind of start they did against England in this particular final. I think that would have been a main reason why these two were selected, along with the idea around the bomb squad. So I think having Faf de Klerk and also Andre Pollard in at 9 and 10 starting this game, it gives South Africa the best options for starting fast, getting the forwards moving forward. Pollard's going to do a bit of kicking, setting up set pieces, and that's the way South Africa are going to run this game. So a pretty standard selection, I think, for me in a World Cup final, to put de Klerk and Pollard in there at 9 and 10. No changes in the centres with both Damien Dealande and Jesse Creel, and we've seen how fantastic these two guys have been playing, and they're going to have to do it again this weekend up against the All Black backline. And well, we'll see how they go and how much gas they've got left in the tank, because boy, both of these boys have done some serious work in the last few games, particularly against England and against France as well. So huge game coming up for both Dealande and Jesse Creel. At the back three for the Springboks, we've got Damien Willemse at fullback. Hoping to see him a little bit more engaged in this game than he was against England. It was just one of those games, I guess there was a few players that missed out on really having opportunities. But then on the wings, we've got Cheslin Colby, of course, and Kurt Liarenze. And yeah, those two guys, their focus for this weekend is going to be under that high ball and trying to cause disruption for the All Blacks. I think with those 50-50 contestables, those two are very, very dangerous, and they can get up there and disrupt it and get the ball back for the South Africans to set up next phase play. So watch for the two South African wingers being able to do something very, very instrumental in helping South Africa go forward in this particular game. And then we've got Willie le Roux sitting on the bench as the sole survivor in the back reserves, and it's going to be interesting to see what happens with this, isn't it? You know, if there is an unfortunate injury to a back during the first 40 minutes, we're going to see how Rassie and Jacques Nienaber are going to deal with that, and how they use their coverage that they do have in the back line. So it's not all a lost cause at all for South Africa. I think it's a high risk situation, the 7-1 bomb squad, but I think also it's a great opportunity, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about that after we've gone and spoken about the All Blacks team. So why don't we do that now? Let's have a look at the All Blacks that are going to be running on for this Rugby World Cup final. Okay, let's have a look at the All Blacks in the forwards, and we start off with the front row. Who's going to take on the mighty Springbok front row? Well, it's going to be Ethan de Groot, Tyrell Lomax, and of course our hooker Cody Taylor. And done a fantastic job with these boys. He's got these young guys really firing, and I think they're just peaking at the perfect time in this game. They've both come back with a little bit of time off, and now they've built into this tournament in a really, really fantastic way. And of course Tyrell Lomax had that terrible injury to his leg after being spiked in that game against South Africa, so he's back in it. And this is going to be a really, really interesting tussle up front, not just for the first 10 minutes or so. I think the first half is going to be quite telling. We may only see 2 or 3 scrums in the first half of this game, but it's going to be big news when we do, to see how these two guys handle it. Then in the locks for the All Blacks, we've got the first change of this particular team to their starting lineup from last weekend, and Brodie Retallick comes back in for Sam Whitelock, and we see Brodie Retallick and Scott Barrett going into the locks together in this game. So Sam Whitelock's going to be starting off the bench for the All Blacks. Brodie Retallick's been a little bit overshadowed, hasn't he, with Sam Whitelock breaking all his milestone records throughout this Rugby World Cup, and I think he's been playing absolutely fantastic rugby. Retallick, he came back from that terrible knee injury he had before the tournament, got himself back into the tournament after a few games, and then he's never looked back, and he's playing as good as I've ever seen him play, Brodie Retallick. So he's going to be a mainstay there in the locking position. Scott Barrett always got the question mark over his discipline, and he can have brain fades at any time of any game. So he's a liability in some respects, Scott Barrett, because just when you're least expecting it, he'll bring out something really, really stupid that you haven't seen before. So let's hope we don't see it in Rugby World Cup final. The last thing the All Blacks want is a yellow card or going down to a red card even, and not a way that you'd want to celebrate your last game of a Rugby World Cup. So let's hope Scott Barrett can keep all his marbles together in his head during this 80 minutes or the time that he's on the field, and let's see what he can do. And then moving on to the back three for the Kiwis, well, this has been probably an area of surprise to some extent for me throughout this tournament, just how good these guys have played. I know they're good, but they've been very good, and Shannon Frizzell, I think, for the All Blacks has been one of the standouts of this team. The way that he's grown into this position, the way that he's grown into this Rugby World Cup, it's been nothing short of outstanding. He's an astounding athlete, and he's a very, very good listener. He's obviously a guy that learns very well, and a lot of the boys talk about that in the squad, about how quickly he's come on and evolved his game, and really understood from his mentors that he's got in the team. So yeah, he's been a standout for me, Shannon Frizzell. Absolutely brilliant in this tournament. And Sam Cane as well, and I've eaten my share of humble pie throughout this tournament, because that game that he played against Ireland was probably his best game in an All Black jersey, bar none, and he stood up when the chips have been down for the Kiwis, and he's going to have to do it again this weekend. And then Ardie Savea, well, he's been nominated for a Player of the Year for a reason, and what do you say? This guy just brings his heart on his sleeve every single game, but he's better than that as well, isn't he? You know, he's like really, really scary good. And every time he gets the ball, he makes a difference in the game of rugby, and that's all you can do. And he's one of those guys that, you know, if you're ever going into a battle, you want him by your side, right? He's that kind of guy that you'd want him right on your shoulder, because you know he's not going to let you down. He's got your back, and he's going to do whatever he can to save the day, and that's what Ardie Savea brings to this All Black team. So yeah, fantastic number 8 for the All Blacks, fantastic human being for the game of rugby, and fantastic ambassador, Ardie Savea. Can't speak highly enough of him. So that's the All Blacks starting 8 in this game. They're up against it, the power, the strength of the Springboks, and it's going to be a huge battle, but it's going to be an exciting one to watch throughout the different momentum shifts that are obviously going to be inevitable throughout this game on Saturday night. So let's talk about the All Black reserve forwards, and these are guys that are going to come on and try and negate the bomb squad. So they've got the biggest job in the whole game as far as I'm concerned, and they are going to have to come on and play something very, very special for the All Blacks to get over the line. And we've got Taki Aho coming on first, and then we've got Neo Lalala's coming, got Sam Whitelock and Dalton Papali'i coming in as well. So yeah, Sam Whitelock coming in as in his last game as an All Black, and what an outstanding achievement for him to be running on for his third World Cup. Absolutely incredible. And then Dalton Papali'i brings up the reserve. So that's the All Blacks reserve forwards for this game. They've got a big job, these boys, and I'm not sure. I've got a question mark over whether they can they're not only going to have to match the bomb squad, they've actually got to keep the All Blacks going forward, and that's going to be they're going to have some kind of superpower to be able to do that. I just think it's going to be a very, very hard task, and I think this is where the game's going to be won and lost for the All Blacks, I think, if they haven't got enough points in that first half of the game. Okay, so let's look at the backs for the All Blacks in this game, and starting off in 9 and 10, we've got Aaron Smith and Richie Mo'unga, of course. Hasn't Aaron Smith been playing well in this Rugby World Cup? He's been back to his very, very best, although I don't know if I've ever seen Aaron Smith play a bad game, but he's been really, really good in this Rugby World Cup. The way that he's been managing the team around the field has been very impressive. He's been right on point, he's been loud, he's been direct, he's been accurate, he's been innovative, he's been creative, and he's been instrumental in getting the All Blacks going to where they need to be. So I think Aaron Smith is one of those players that's played an extraordinary World Cup for the All Blacks, and if they do go on to win on Saturday night, he's one of the boys that can really hold their head up high to say that he took charge of their destiny and dragged them kicking and screaming towards that finish line. I think he's played a really fantastic part in this All Black team. Richie Mo'unga, a few words around camp in the last 24 hours that he had picked up a bit of an injury. All these myths come out during the Rugby World Cup final week. We'll hear for sure after the game whether that was true or not, but for now he's in the starting 15. He's going to do his job, and let's hope his kicking boots are a little bit better on than they were against Argentina. He had a little bit of an off day. He's going to have to get everything over this weekend for the All Blacks to stay in this game, that's for sure. And then outside we've got the two inside centre. Well, we've got the inside centre in Jordie Barrett, and hasn't he played well during this tournament? Saying that about all the players, because they have, you know, they've got to the stage of this tournament from both teams, whether they've been All Blacks or South Africans, and they've been playing very good rugby at different times, different styles, different reasons in these games that they've played. You know, the French versus the Springboks and the All Blacks versus the Irish game, very similar in respect to what these players had to put up, and their defence in that game was huge, and Jordie Barrett was one of those ones that led New Zealand's defence from the front, so he'll get a start in the Rugby World Cup final. One of the three Barrett brothers in the team, which is another milestone for the All Blacks and for World Rugby. Imagine standing alongside your two brothers in a Rugby World Cup final. It does my head in that. I just don't know how that must feel. It must be an extraordinary achievement for a family to be able to do that. That's just something beyond belief, that one. And then we've got Rieko Ioane outside centre. He's played well again all tournament, big in defence as well as his offence. That 13 channel is a very difficult channel to defend in. You're doing a lot of running, and I expect him to do a lot of running in this weekend's final, because he'll be up against those speedsters outside in the Springboks. So Rieko Ioane's got a lot of workload coming up in this game on Saturday night. And then on the wings we've got Will Jordan, of course, a fantastic player in this tournament. 7 tries so far, going to try and break the record. A lot of people will be sad by that. Brian Habana, one of them, and Jonah Lomu, of course. And boy, to be up there in that echelon of talking about the greats of world rugby, Will Jordan, you know, he's an unassuming guy, isn't he? He's not a huge guy, but he's Johnny on the spot every game. He makes breaks, he scores tries when you're least expecting it. He creates stuff, and I think that could be a little bit of the magic sauce for the All Blacks in this game, with Will Jordan making something, creating something that just surprises everybody, even his own teammates, and getting in there and scoring a try for the All Blacks. Mark Talia on the other wing hasn't done much wrong, has he, on the field? He might have had broken a curfew off the field to keep him out of the team against Ireland, but he's done well on the field, and another one of those breakout players in the All Black team for this year's Rugby World Cup. I think he's going to go on to greatness if he sticks around, and I think he's going to have a big game as well. He's good under the high ball, and he's instrumental in getting the All Blacks that 10 or 15 metres up the field that they need to go, particularly in wet conditions. So expect Mark Talia to have a great game. And then at fullback, it's the Mr. Reliable, isn't it? Beauden Barrett. And boy, he can break a game open as well, as we've seen in previous Rugby World Cup finals. So let's see if Beauden Barrett has his day in the office that everybody hopes he has. So yeah, fantastic backline there for the All Blacks. They've come into this game in pretty good form. So expect them to shine throughout the 80 minutes of this particular game. And then in the reserves for the All Blacks on the bench, my only negative for me personally, I love Cam Roigard as a footballer. I think he's everything the future holds. Maybe it's not his time. Well, it's not, according to Ian Foster, his time for this year's Rugby World Cup. So we see Finlay Christie coming in to cover the halfback, and I would have had Cam Roigard in there. And then we've got Anton Leonard-Brown and Damian McKenzie, two players that have got two different strengths. McKenzie's that game changer. He can come in and hopefully change the game if it's not going right for the All Blacks. And then we have Anton Leonard-Brown, who can come in and shore up the defence like we saw him do against Ireland. So everybody has their role to play in this game, and it's going to be down to who plays their role on the day better, isn't it? That's going to come out as the winner. So that's the All Blacks team that's been named. No 7-1 bomb squad from the All Blacks. Back team to take on the Springboks tomorrow night in the Stade de France, and yeah, really interesting. It's a 5-3 split. Jason Ryan, Ian Foster and Joe Schmidt have said they've got a way of combating the bomb squad, and they're going to be right there until the very end, they said. So let's see how that pans out in this year's Rugby World Cup. So I think the last thing for me to do is to give you my prediction of what's going to happen and who's going to win this game. Well, I'm not gonna deviate from my love of New Zealand and the All Blacks. I've got that black blood in me. I want the All Blacks to win the game. Are they going to win the game? I'm going to say yes, they are. But, and the but is this, the but is the bomb squad. And we saw it in Twickenham. We saw it also at Mount Smart Stadium, that a lot of people have forgotten that the Springboks nearly got back into that game, and it was because of the bomb squad. And we're going to see it again this Saturday night. And I think this is a fantastic play from Rassie Erasmus and Jacques Nienaber. I think this is the way to beat the All Blacks, is to put them under constant forward pressure and go for 80 minutes with that pressure and just see how they respond. And let's face it, if they're good enough to respond and win after having faced that bomb squad, then the All Blacks deserve to win the game. And adversely, if they don't, and if the Springboks use that power and that strength through the bomb squad to win the game, then they deserve it as well. So for me, it comes down to the bomb squad and the effectiveness of the bomb squad. And whoever manages that tussle the best and comes out on top, then they're going to win the Rugby World Cup in 2023. So there you go. I want the All Blacks to win. I'm supporting the All Blacks, but the bomb squad could be the one and only major difference in this game, and we're going to find out in just over 24 hours time. So very, very exciting. So there you go, there's my thoughts around what's going to happen in the Rugby World Cup final. Now don't forget, after the Rugby World Cup final, I've got lots of videos coming out about the tournament itself. Got a lot of opinions to share about what we learnt from this year's tournament. I don't think we should go through a competition like this without taking some learnings away, and there's been a fantastic tournament hosted by a fantastic country, and it's been very, very exciting on so many different levels. But like most things in life, there's things that we can learn from it, particularly World Rugby, and I want to talk about some of those things post-tournament, so don't forget to check out my videos about that. So drop me your final comments about this game. I'm interested to read whether you've had any thoughts around the namings of the teams and whether that's had an impact on your predictions for Saturday night's game. Weather update, it might be a little bit better than what we were anticipating, but at the end of the day, it's going to come down to two fantastic rugby teams, isn't it, that take on this Rugby World Cup final. So I look forward to reading all of your comments. I'll be back again soon with more videos from the Rugby World Cup. Until then, everybody stay safe, stay well, and I'll see you again really, really soon. Bye for now.